Thank you so much for watching Landumc Goes There. Please subscribe and hit the like button and the bell notification button. Man of the West is a 1958 American Western film that stars Gary Cooper and was directed by Anthony Mann. It was produced by Walter Marish and distributed by United Artists. Its screenplay was written by Reginald Rose and is based on a 1955 novel that's called The Border Jumpers by Will Brown. The supporting cast is Julie London, Lee J. Cobb, Jack Lord, Arthur O'Connell, John Diner, Robert Wilkie, and Royal Dano. The storyline goes that former outlaw Link Jones gave up that life long ago. He's now traveling from his small town to Texas to hire their first school teacher. When the train stops on the way, they are jumped by armed robbers, but the train ends up escaping and leaves Jones and the fast-talking Sam Beasley, plus saloon girl singer Billie Ellis, behind. They start walking and eventually reach a place that Link knows very well, that being the farmhouse where he once lived. There he finds the men who robbed the train, and also there is his uncle, Doc Tobin, who wants Link to return to his old ways and rejoin the gang. Link has no interest in doing this, so he has to find a way out for them, knowing that they will all die once the gang finishes its next big job. Gary Cooper, the lead in the film, was nearly 57 when he did it. That was a decade older than Lee J. Cobb, who played his uncle, Doc Tobin. Even with extremely heavy makeup, it was generally agreed that Cobb still looked younger than Cooper did. And Cooper was actually about 20 years older than his character was supposed to be. It's thought that Stuart Granger was originally announced for this lead role, and something came about that changed that and moved it to Gary Cooper. This happens to be one of Gary Cooper's last westerns, and it's his last film that he made before he had plastic surgery in April of 1958. Many people wonder why Jimmy Stewart was not the star of the film, as he had already made several westerns with the director Anthony Mann. According to producer Walter Marish, they had just completed Love in the Afternoon from 1957 with Gary Cooper in it, and they quickly signed him to do another movie. Thus, Cooper was on the picture before any director had been hired, and it's also thought by many insiders that Jimmy Stewart was never considered for this lead role because he had had a falling out with the director the previous year. The opening credits list a title song composed by Bobby Troup, who is the husband of the leading lady, Julie London. But the strange thing is, there is no such song featured in the actual movie. The film was shot the same year as William Wyler's The Big Country, and both shared set designer Edward Boyle. As is often the case with Western productions, the two films also share major shooting locations, this one being the ghost town of Lasso in the last act of the movie. That is exactly the same set that was used for the hideout ranch located at the end of Blanco Canyon in the final stretch of The Big Country. As old as Gary Cooper was in the film, he bravely did his own horse riding scenes, despite the physical pain that he was suffering from. You see, he had had a car accident years earlier that had left him with some troubling pain that lingered on. Initially, this film was introduced by Warner Brothers as a vehicle for John Wayne. I think it's probably best that John Wayne didn't do this film, as I think it would be really hard to replace Gary Cooper in this role. The producer, Walter Marish, told in his biography that during the shooting of the film, he and Gary Cooper were invited to dinner at Joel McCrae's ranch which was not far from the shooting set. McRae told Cooper that early in his career, he had accepted some roles that Cooper had turned down. But Cooper denies this, and they didn't argue about it any further. Mirisch tells that the dinner was great, and they had a real agreeable time at it. The contest that you see between Paunch and Doc Tobin is called hand wrestling. The contestants stand with their feet spread, each with his right foot forward, touching the outside of the opponent's right foot. The contestants grasp right hands and attempt to overbalance the opponent by pulling, pushing, turning, and twisting of their hands. The left hand must not be used against the opponent. Either contestant forced to touch the ground with any part of his body other than his feet, or who is forced to move either foot, loses the bout. Principal photography for the production started and ended in 1958 with a total budget of $1.5 million. It was shot in widescreen cinemascope by cinematographer Ernest Haller, who's best known for his Academy Award-winning work in Gone with the Wind. Although the film takes place in Texas, most of it was shot entirely in California. The train scenes were shot on the Sierra Railroad in Jamestown, California. Red Rock Canyon State Park, Santa Clarita, Thousand Oaks, and the Mojave Desert all served as filming locations too. It's noted that the director observed Gary Cooper's eyes when he was filming the movie, and he was fascinated by them. He said it was all in the eyes. He thought that the heroes have very light blue or green eyes. He said that the eyes reflect the inner flame that animates the heroes. The guys with dark eyes play supporting roles or become character actors. When you think about this statement, it pretty much is right on. Now, Royal Dano's character in the film, he doesn't say anything. He plays a mute in it. But he's got one of those voices that you probably remember even if you don't know his face. Long after Dano is dead and gone, he was the voice of Abraham Lincoln at Walt Disney's Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln attraction, which was first presented at the 1964 World's Fair. Disney personally selected Dano for this role because he felt the actor came the closest to the historical depictions of Lincoln's voice. Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln was moved to Disneyland in 1965, and Dano's vocals continued to be part of that attraction until 2001. So even though he doesn't make a sound in this film, you know his voice if you've ever been to Disneyland. Take a look at this classic Western. It's a good one. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.